right.
Maniac is my most anticipated TV series of this year. It's currently available to stream on Netflix, all 10 episodes, and it is directed by none other than Cary Fukunaga, who has directed films like Beasts of No Nation, but more importantly, he directed the first season of True Detective, which is seen by many as one of the greatest TV seasons ever. Now that's one reason I was excited for the show. The second reason is its cast. This show stars Jonah Hill, Justin Theroux, Sally Field, and Emma Stone, who is my favorite actress, as many of you may know. And also the initial premise and the trailers and stuff made me really excited as well. And I'm not going to beat around the bush, this is one of the greatest seasons of TV I've ever seen. I think that it is amazing. Now the first reason I love Maniac so much is how diverse it is. And what I mean by that is, if you've seen the show, if you've seen the trailers, then you'll know that it's essentially the story of two misfits who don't feel fulfilled in life, they don't feel happy, they have a very dark past, and essentially they go into this drug trial that promises to make everything better again, and within that drug trial they start to have these visions and hallucinations inside their head of all these different stories and settings and everything. And so basically the filmmakers go completely crazy with that, because a large portion of the show are just stories that are happening inside their heads, and these stories work so well and they are so different because we're getting like this really quirky 80s story and one that is happening in like the 1940s with like a supernatural element, and then there's this weird like Warcraft, Lord of the Rings satire world, and there's this weird spy espionage thing that's going on. And so really everyone working on this show gets to show off how much range they have. So let's talk about the cinematography, for example. I mean, this being a sci-fi dark comedy drama at its core, at its base, basically means that they get to go crazy in terms of lighting and production design and color. And so a lot of the shots that are happening within the lab look absolutely gorgeous and just so beautiful. And when it goes into this 1940s story, it switches into this incredibly classic look that feels almost Bond-esque. And then when it goes into this World of Warcraft, Lord of the Rings world, there are some shots that look like straight out of The Revenant. And so really, both in terms of visuals and subject matter, they get to cover so much ground. It's basically like you're getting 3 or 4 or 5 shows for the price of one. And this diversity is also shown in the music, because this is some of the best music I've ever heard, whether it's for a TV series or a film or anything. It's kind of like a mishmash of like Johnny Greenwood meets Trent Reznor meets Johan Johansson meets Max Richter. It's actually amazing. And of course, we can't talk about range without talking about some of the performances in this show, because oh my god. Emma Stone and Jonah Hill, the two lead performances, are absolutely incredible, as I knew they would be because they are some of my favorite actors, as I mentioned. But really, it is a joke how much range they get to show and how powerful their performances were, because again, you have Emma Stone getting to do one of those like weird sort of New York Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie accents. You get to see her do a British accent, which makes me so excited for The Favourite, in which she also does a British accent. You get to see Jonah Hill do this like weird Finnish, Danish, Swedish, Swiss accent, which is completely crazy and completely hilarious. They really get to experiment and go completely crazy with it, but at the same time they really do manage to keep all their performances feel grounded and their characters feel real, no matter how over the top it gets sometimes. And their characters in the real world are just so incredibly interesting and so powerful, because so many of us can relate to. They don't feel like they fit in with the real world, they don't feel like they've fulfilled anything, they have family issues, they have financial issues, they just have tons and tons of issues. And so I think that no matter who you are, you'll be able to find some form of yourself within these characters. I probably found myself more invested in Jonah Hill's story, although I would say that Emma Stone's character is like the more in control one, the one that does have a very dark past that is explored so powerfully. But I found her character to be actually more layered than Jonah Hill, even though I found myself more invested in Jonah Hill's, because there's this one thing about Emma Stone's character that I found very interesting, and that's that she's definitely the more confident one. She's definitely the one that is kind of more in charge out of the two, but I think that it's because of she's trying to hide the pain and the suffering behind this sort of wall of authority. And that was something that I found so interesting, and I thought that she portrayed that really well. And so really, these are two of the most interesting characters I've seen all year. And let's talk about some of the other performances though, because you have Justin Theroux, who's one of the most underrated actors working today. And I think that he plays a character who in most shows would just kind of come across as the one-dimensional doctor, you know, like the nerdy scientist. And he was amazing. I thought his relationship that was built with Sally Field was so emotional. His relationship that was built with his like doctor partner, Sonoya Mizuno, who plays her, I thought was amazing. All the performances here were so great, and I also, weirdly enough, really related to Justin Theroux's character, and I think a lot of us will as well. And so in terms of performances, in terms of the technical side of it, I think they all did such a great job. But I also now want to talk about Cary Fukunaga, what he brings to the table as a director, because of course there's been a lot of buzz about him recently with him directing the next Bond, and he showcases so many different things in this series that make me so excited to see him direct Bond. Now, I don't really want to compare this show too much with True Detective Season 1 because of course that was such a great show, but they're very different shows, and I would probably say I like them on the same level. But going into Maniac, I was kind of expecting, like, I was wondering whether or not there was going to be a long take sequence that would rival that of True Detective Season 1, and yes there is. Yes there is. But I think two things that Cary Fukunaga and his team have been able to accomplish so well are tone and structure, because tonally, this show could have been completely all over the place, and in a way it is, but he manages to make it all feel really grounded and really cohesive, but at the same time letting some of these stories play out in a way that they almost feel like their own short films. You could literally just pull like a chunk out of an episode and just call it a 20-30 minute short film, and it would be a really good story. But at the same time, it works with the show on a wider scale. In terms of the structuring of the episodes, I think that it's very unconventional, and it's also very unpretentious, because I feel like, again, most shows like this would not do it the way they have done it. Because if you've seen the show again, you'll know that the first two episodes are basically solely dedicated to the establishment of Jonah Hill and Emma Stone's characters, showing us their backstories and their past and what they're like before they go into the drug trial. I found the decision to set up the characters first really interesting, because I think that if someone else were to do this show, they would probably have made it maybe like start it in the trial and then flash back to Jonah Hill and Emma Stone's past, which I think would have just made it so much more confusing. So I feel like they decided for the first two episodes, let's just set up these two characters as simply and unpretentiously as possible. Let's make sure that the audience are invested. Let's make sure that we set up the world, and then we bring them into the story, and then the crazy stuff happens, so that we are invested in their characters when the crazy stuff happens. And I also, something I picked up on is that not every single episode is like an hour long. There are episodes that are like 40 minutes, 50 minutes, but some episodes are like 26 minutes. And what that does is, number one, it makes it feel like a 9 or 10 hour film, basically, in the same way that he did with True Detective Season 1. And it also shows that a lot of TV series nowadays, like Iron Fist or some of the Marvel Netflix stuff that I've seen recently, are so desperate and are trying so hard just to fill episodes with stuff. Random stuff that does not contribute anything to the story. And with Maniac, they're just like, well, if it doesn't contribute to the story, if it doesn't work for the characters, it's just going to cut it out, and you're going to have a 26-minute episode. It's going to be fast-paced, and it's going to be fun, and there's going to be no nonsense, no filler. Great, you know? That's the type of stuff that we should be doing. We shouldn't just be trying to fill up time. We should be trying to tell a good story, and if it means that the story's going to be shorter, then that's fine. And as I was kind of saying towards the beginning of the review, at its core, I find that this is a story about two people who do not live a happy life, who are unfulfilled, who do not get along with other people or members of their family, and they just feel isolated from the world. And they meet each other, and then there's this connection, and they realize that there is someone for them out there, and that in order to move on from that traumatic past, they have to come to terms with it and confront it. And that was shown so beautifully, so creatively, and no one else could have done it in the way that Cary Fukunaga and his team and his actors did. And it was just so amazing. And I feel like this is the type of show, though, that a lot of people are going to nitpick. A lot of people are going to be like, you know, well, what about this? That doesn't make sense. Why did you do this? But I feel like most of you would agree with me when I say that we're at a point now where no matter what Cary Fukunaga does, I highly doubt that he's going to do something without purpose or intent. He's not just going to show you this without it having some meaning. And so I feel like there's going to be a lot of people who nitpick, but let's be honest here, most of us are not nearly as smart as this guy, and we're not going to get everything, you know, from the get-go and from the first viewing. And so I feel like a lot of people are going to be nitpicking and saying that, oh, look at this and that and that. But come on, it's all for a purpose. Trust me, this is Cary Fukunaga we're talking about. Okay, this is Emma Stone and Jonah Hill we're talking about. I have one issue with the show, and weirdly enough, it actually has nothing to do with the show itself, and that's that there is no opening title sequence. That is literally my only issue. I was just kind of hoping that we would get like an American Gods style title sequence or something, but we didn't get one. There is no title sequence, unfortunately. That is literally my only problem with Maniac. I think it starts beautifully. I think it ends beautifully. I honestly think that aside from that one tiny childish issue, this is pretty much a perfect series. It's a perfect story. It's a powerful story, and it's one that people should see. It's one that I think people will relate to, and it's one that people should be trying to make more of. Not copy it, but you know, like, people should be trying to tell more stories like this in this way, with this level of ambition. And to be honest with you, I went into this show expecting to give it an A+, and yeah, I'm gonna give Maniac an A+. Guys, thank you very, very much for watching my review. It's been a while since I've been hit this hard by a story, by a show like this, but I hope you watch Maniac. It's only 10 episodes long. Thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you.